Welcome back to Channel 7. My name's Ivana and I'm wishing you a Happy New Year's. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read at the end of November and throughout December. Do not worry, I do not have like 20 or something books to talk about. I had exams, I was busy, but I do have some really good books that I would like to share with you, even if I don't have that much to say about them. Before we get started, my reading goal for 2021 is 60 books, which is twice as much as my reading goal for 2020. I actually ended up reading 65 books in 2020, and that was 2,333 pages total, taking into account the specific books that I read. So that's really exciting. Hopefully this year I can surpass 60 and read like 80 books or something. If you hear noise in the background, portable heater, do not mind that. The first book that I'm going to share with you guys today is If You Come Softly by Jacqueline Woodson. This is such a beautiful story. First of all, Jacqueline Woodson is a fantastic author. She writes such poetic and lyrical and really raw, honest tales of just people's lives. And we have two characters, Jeremiah and Ellie, who fall in love. They're in high school, I believe, and they are obviously from different racial backgrounds, but the same socioeconomic group. However, their relationship is not seen as appropriate, nor is it approved by the people that see them together in public, holding hands or being in the type of relationship that they're in. The book is really traumatic and very saddening. It is supposed to be a Romeo and Juliet retelling. As you can imagine, it does not end beautifully in terms of like, wow, this was a great happy ending. That's just not part of this tale, but it is 100% worthwhile reading. I believe I gave this a 5-star. You should read it too. The next book I read is actually my favorite read of 2020 and probably my favorite read of like the decade. That's Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is her debut novel, and I was beyond impressed with the story. Our main character, Bree's mother, has recently passed away. At the same time, Bree has gotten admissions into this prestigious high school program on the UNC Chapel campus, which is a university campus. So she basically accepts her admissions to escape the suffocating grief that she feels in her home, and in doing so, she is opening up her life to a whole new world. The first night that she's at this campus, she witnesses some magical attack and realizes that everything is not as it seems. She ends up infiltrating this old boys type society club that she discovers on campus, trying to figure out the truth about it, and in turn realizes that they may have a connection to her mother's death, which only gives her more drive to decipher and figure out what is going on in this Arthurian society. Either way, this is a King Arthur retelling, so it was just so good. It was so good. Our main character is obviously a Black woman, as you can tell by the cover, and she has to deal with a lot of racism, and whether covert or overt, at the society that she's in, because it is a predominantly white, if not all white society. And oh my god, I can't even get into it without spoiling it, but there's just so much about this that makes it rich and just worth reading. Also, the romance, fantastic. Like, there's a very subtle, gently implied love triangle brewing, and I cannot wait for the second book because I need to know what's gonna happen. I need to know. But anyways, that is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I cannot believe I just spewed all my love in such a short amount of time. Okay. The next book that I read is The Upside of Falling by Alex Light. This is actually a Wattpad novel that has been published. I just wanted to know. I wanted to know what it would be like. And I'll be honest with you, it was not terrible. It was not. It's about our two characters, Becca and Brett. Becca comes from a single-parent home and does not believe in love because her parents had a kind of nasty divorce. She only believes love exists in between pages, essentially books. And Brett has a perfect family. His mom and dad have been like high school sweethearts. Everyone in their town knows about their relationship, loves them, adores them, and he wants to impress his dad by getting a girlfriend. So these two find themselves in quite the situation, end up in a fake relationship, and as we all know in books, fake relationships always lead to real relationships. I gave this a 3-star because it was honestly not like terrible or anything. I didn't love it. It wasn't extraordinary. It wasn't mind-blowing. The writing was pretty mediocre, just like the story, but I did enjoy it while I read it. So 3 stars for The Upside of Falling. The next book is of a similar variety, and it is called The Upside of Falling Down by Rebecca Crane. My first and not my last Rebecca Crane book in this video, because I really just love her writing style. It's very lyrical and poetic and fluffy, and I personally like that when I'm reading literature. But this story is about a girl named Clementine, and she is a lone survivor of a plane crash. When she wakes up, she does not remember anything about her past, about who she is, and is feeling rather weighed down by people's expectations of her to be who she was, essentially. So when she is in the courtyard of the hospital, kind of getting a breath of fresh air, and stumbles across this stranger, she creates a fake identity and convinces him to help her escape the hospital, going off to a little town where she cannot be found for the time being. And there is a romance that ensues and just friendships that brew, and it was honestly a good time. I read this in one sitting when I was supposed to be studying for my exam, and I'm not gonna lie, it was the best waste of time. The best. But yeah, I gave this a 4-star, I believe, and it was totally worth it. I love this book, I really do. The next book I read was also a Rebecca Crane, and that is The Infinite Pieces of Us. This story broke my heart, made me just, I felt all the feelings. Our main character, Esther, is being shipped off with her family. Well, her family is shipping her and themselves off to New Mexico after bearing a very embarrassing secret, and Esther is feeling trapped and unloved, neglected to some extent. When she moves to this new town, she discovers a fantastic group of friends, and they help her kind of deal with her past by literally confronting it, like physically confronting her past, the secrets that her family tried to bury. And in doing so, Esther is able to let go of the pain and the dejection and I guess guilt that she's feeling. The characters were so colorful, and literally there's a character called Color, a character called Moss. We have, I want to say her name was Heather, but I don't think it was. Lots of just fun characters and crappy people in the story that are totally worth reading about. There's a lot of talk about the church in terms of it, like the religiosity of it, and I thought that was a pretty interesting conversation. Personally for me, like, I'm Christian, and I'm reading the story and I'm hearing questions that a lot of people probably have about Christianity, and the reality of it is that the church is not perfect, and you will see that when you read this book. The church is made up of people, and people by nature are not perfect, so obviously the church has flaws, and in this story there are flaws. Stay tuned, read the book to find out. I think I gave this 5 stars. Honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll put the ratings up on the screen so you know which books I gave the highest ratings. The next book was kind of a twist, something different from the romances that I had been reading, and that is Dear Martin by Nick Stone. Nick Stone is not an author that I personally love. I know a lot of people feel really impacted by her writing, but her writing itself, like the literal writing style that she has, I detest. I don't know what it is. I just don't like it very much. However, the subject matter of this story made up immensely for my disdain for her writing style. Justice, our main character, is in a bit of a situation with the police where he's helping somebody that he personally knows and is wrongfully assumed to be like stealing from them or hurting them. He gets put in jail and then eventually taken out, and realizes that it doesn't matter how educated you are or what kind of background you come from, they're going to make assumptions about you based on your skin color. And he starts writing these letters to Martin Luther King, who's like obviously dead. This is not historical fiction, but He writes them in hopes that he can become more like Dr. King in terms of his patience and his love and his kindness that he extended towards those who hated him. But at another point in the story, he is faced with a devastating event that involves his best friend and the police, and it begs the question, like, is it worth it educating yourself or, you know, trying to be a better person if all they're going to see of you is your skin color, and that is enough for them to hate you, to feel like they can inflict violence upon you? And this is an important question because Justice is like the model, like, black person, I guess you could say, right? Like, he is going to an Ivy League, like, he goes to a private school, he's worked hard, he's respectful, he doesn't speak improperly. I gave this a 3.75, I think, because the subject matter, like I have said multiple times, was really good. The next book is Punching the Air, which was written by Yusuf Salaam, one of the Exonerated Five, and Ibiza Boy, who wrote a couple of other pretty interesting books that I'm going to be checking out in the near future. But this story is about a gentleman who is black and was wrongfully convicted of a crime that he witnessed and, like, he was present in, but he did not commit the crime he is imprisoned for. And it talks about his experience in jail or juvenile detention, the violence inflicted upon him, the brutalization, the way they cripple their minds, and just the corruption of the system as a whole. This was a colorful, vivid story, not in the sense that it was positive or it was like light and happy, but in the sense that it really brought to light the negatives and the issues with the prison system and criminal justice system in Northern America. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 5-star. Definitely check it out. It's pretty quick, easy read because it's written in a very, like, poetic format. But yeah. The next book is Postcards for a Songbird by Rebecca Crane. Wow, this is book 3 from Rebecca Crane. The story is about our main character, Wren, which I found out during this book that is a songbird. She has had a tough life in the sense that everybody she loves leaves her. Her mother left her, her best friend left her, and eventually her sister, who she never thought would leave her, has left. And she feels that there's no point in being vulnerable or opening up or loving anybody if they're only going to walk away from you. And that kind of isolates her and cages her in. And as you know, a bird needs to fly. That was cheesy. Okay. This book was so beautifully and poetically written. Again, like, my favorite thing about any book is the way it's been written. And she meets a special guy at her driver's ed class, and also a friend who moves in across the house from her, and they are kind of pulling different parts of her. One is saying, don't go out, don't take steps into this world, it's only gonna hurt you, it's only gonna devastate you, it's only gonna ruin your life. And the other is saying, you have to be free, you have to fly, you have to experience life, you need to love and laugh and live. Which side is she gonna choose? And in her choice, she discovers her true self. It was good. It was good. 5 stars for me. The last book I'm going to be talking about is Daughters of Enri by Rennie K. Amayo, and this book disappointed me. I just thought that after reading Legendborn and Children of Blood and Bone, I thought I was gonna get, like, that level of story. I totally set myself up for disappointment by putting it up there with those stories, but this just fell through the cracks for me. A lot of the story was anticipating what was going to come, and what came in 5 pages of a almost 300+ page book. That was utterly frustrating and disappointing for me, as I literally rushed through this book to only realize that it was over before it began. But let's get into it. Our two main characters, Nala and Sanai, are twin sisters, separated at birth. They are born of a god. This is an Igbo folklore kind of story, just so you know. And it takes place in like 900 AD or something of that sort. But these characters eventually have to cross paths because their destinies depend on it. However, they start at two very different points in life. Sanai grew up in the palace as a noble woman and has been living kind of like as an outcast. She isolates herself because she doesn't feel like she belongs. And then Nala grew up in the village and has lived a fulfilling and bright and happy life with her family and her townspeople until a tragic event kind of severs those ties and she is forced to run away. That sounds really interesting, and I'm not going to lie, I did enjoy the reading process of it, but I was just so disappointed when I realized that the book was over and I did not get what I wanted. I will be reading the next book because I'm sure it's going to have a lot more action in it now that the sisters have finally met. But yeah. I gave this a 3-star. Look at the cover of this though, like beautiful black women, like it's exciting. That is the end of my November-December wrap up. I actually read a couple more books in between, but I just didn't feel like talking about them, to be honest. If you're curious, go on my Goodreads and you can check out what I was reading that I haven't talked about on my YouTube. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. I hope 2021 treats you and I better than 2020 did. With love and respect.